I'm a former religious cult member who spent 27 years having all areas of my life completely controlled by someone else. AMA. I was born and raised in a small communal Bible-based cult in the US. I was a part of the cult until I was 27. Daily life revolved around a church and the pastor's wife, who ran the cult. The children were raised to be workers in the church and to give their lives for what the leader wanted. My siblings, mother, and I were once one of 9 families and other single people when the group originally started, but that has now dwindled down to roughly 3-4 families. We were not allowed to have friends outside the church, to live anywhere except a church-owned house, or leave the church without escort or express permission. As kids grew up and went to college, they were discouraged from getting jobs to pay for school, but instead heavily encouraged, coerced, to max out student loans and give the money to the church. Students' class schedules were denied or approved, as the leadership saw fit. The single family unit was destroyed and everyone was pressured into viewing the group as one big family. I have been out now for 4 years and it has been one interesting ride thus far. Learning how to live in the real world has been difficult, but the independence and freedom I now have is irreplaceable. My entire family, except for my father, still attends the church. I still believe in the Bible and I attend church. Needless to say, I am extremely skeptical of dogma and religion, and I do my best to seek out truth and reject lies. Did they just let you leave, or did you have to sneak away from it? I had to sneak out. If you told anyone you were leaving, they would throw you out on the street with nothing and not allow you to get your things. Also, I knew my family would try really hard to talk me into staying, and because I love them so much, it would be hard to resist their pleas. So, I packed 4 bags with as many important things and necessities as I could and took everything to work with me that day. Actually, I took 2 bags with on the bus that morning, returned around lunchtime and took the other 2 with me when I went back to work that afternoon. LOL. After I got to work, I called my oldest sister to tell her that I was not coming home and that the only reason I was calling was so they wouldn't worry about me. I then told her that I didn't want anyone trying to contact me for a few weeks while I sorted everything out. I then had my co-worker drive me to a friend's house. I had met this girl in college and we had stayed friends. How, I'm not sure. Fortunately, providentially, for me, she owned a house and had a free room that had just become available. She let me stay with her for 6 months until I could find my own place. Isn't it fraud to make them max out student loans to donate to the church? That just seems highly illegal. I've often wondered that same thing, but I haven't been successful in finding a way to do anything about it. The real problem is that the students who took out the loans would deny having done it for the leaders, and they would claim that the money went to living expenses. It's hard to prove in court when it's one person's word against another that those living expenses included putting a new roof and new carpet and tile in the pastor's house. My dad tried to have the IRS get involved, but they told him they weren't interested. I guess it was too small for them. What made you finally get out? Why did it take so long in the first place? I tried to get out when I was 19, but I was talked into returning. They use a lot of manipulation techniques, make promises they don't intend to keep. They told us that if we left, God was going to kill us. We were raised in fear and completely surrounded with fear constantly. As a result, I grew up very fearful of just about everything. We were also taught that the leader was God's anointed and we could never question her or her teachings or we would be killed. This was reinforced by stories from the Bible where people questioned authority and God punished them. There were several really bad things that happened when I was in my mid-20s that culminated in my leaving. One of these things was the pastor trying to have an affair with one of my older sisters. When she refused him, his wife and other leaders painted my sister out to be a W and told the church that she had tried to seduce the pastor. I watched them drive my sister into deep depression and break her as a person. Every time I tried to say something or talk about the truth, I was punished or told I didn't know what was really going on. Eventually I had to get a job, met a guy who became my best friend and husband, and together we talked through many things, studied the Bible together, and prayed that I would know what the truth of my situation was. I actually had a day when I had an absolute revelation of what was happening and what that place was, so I left. You said your dad has supported you, so I'm assuming you still have regular contact with him. What about the rest of your family? Would you ever go back to visit them? I talk to my dad probably once a week. He and I are very close. I talk with my other family members every few months or so, depending on what's going on. In the past 1.5 years my relationship with my family has gotten much better. I have to take a lot of crap from them, but it's worth it to maintain my family. I do go back to visit them, but I have a policy of never going to the church. I broke this only this summer to attend both of my brother's weddings. It was a hard decision for me to make, but I felt it was important to show them what real love looks like. I have put myself in several uncomfortable situations to make a point to them that I love them and I am not attacking them. I am attacking the lies and wickedness that is that church. Are the cult leaders harassing or perusing you for leaving? I heard that is the case with some cults. Also, are there things you miss in a cult type living? I have become public enemy number 1 at the cult, a place my father used to hold. I'm actually pretty proud of that. The cult leaders hate me and continually malign me to the members there. They are constantly coming up with lies about me and propagating those lies to both acquaintances and members of the cult. I have done my best to address every lie they spread about me in a loving, truthful way, and most times it ends up coming back to bite them. Thus, my infamous reputation at the church. There are many things I miss about living there, which is perhaps the strangest and most difficult to comprehend fact for many people. The closeness and sense of security that is developed in these places leaves you feeling empty and scared when you leave. It takes a long time to get over that. I guess what has helped me most is realizing that the type of closeness you feel is not a genuine experience, but rather an effect of the trauma you go through. In addition, that type of closeness is not meant to be shared with a large group of people in the way it is shared in a cult. Although it may feel great, it is ultimately detrimental to your health. I also miss my family a lot. Were there threats of violence once you left? Not physical violence, but my family cut me off and said really hurtful things to me. They also threatened me with calling the police and having me arrested for trespassing if I returned to the house where I had lived. I went back to get the rest of my things and they gave me 2 hours to get everything. Anything I didn't get out in that time, they said I couldn't have. Of course, I was not allowed to bring any help and they refused to help me. It was one of the hardest things I ever experienced. What was your church called? What religious sect are you? I'd rather not give the name of the church at this time. They started out Baptist but were kicked out of the convention in the early 70s. They were not affiliated with any denomination when I was growing up. They called themselves simply Bible-based Christians. I am not a part of a religious sect. I attend a church that has a Messianic Jewish pastor and I have really enjoyed learning how much the Jewish religion has influenced and is a part of the Christian religion. Glad you've found Reddit. From one life controlling force to another. LOL. Could be. How did you do to get out of the cult? Did it take long and how did the cult leaders, if that's the word for it, react? Also, how does people react when they get to know that you have been in a cult? Thanks for the IAmA. I realized what it was one day, spent 2 weeks wondering if I should stay and fix it. Had something really terrible happened that caused me to realize it was never going to change, and left in one day. My grandmother had passed away out of state and my whole family went to the funeral the weekend I decided to leave, so it was kinda complicated to just leave. But I knew I had to do whatever I was going to do right away because if I waffled at all I would lose my opportunity. As far as people reacting, most look at me like I'm an alien with 3 heads. They don't know how to respond to that or how to treat me. Things usually become very awkward. It's not something I have been very comfortable sharing with many people. I'm thankful for the opportunity to do it here. Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate them. Did they ever make you have sex and stuff? No, but there was a lot of twisted stuff that went on. In a lot of the cult situations I have heard about, there were allegations of sexual abuse. Any truth to this for you? There were multiple allegations of sexual abuse in the church but the police were never called and no charges were ever filed. It's hard for me to know how much of it was truth and how much of it was not. This is still something I struggle with today. You should hire the A-team to get the rest of your family out. I'm pretty sure they have experience with cults. LOL. I would love that. Of course, Hannibal would have to agree to my riding along. I'm a filmmaker, and my next project is about deprogramming. Have you heard of the term? And did anyone possibly deprogram you, or did you use exit counseling? And did the cult warn you about deprogrammers? I have most definitely heard the term deprogramming. My particular cult never warned about deprogrammers, but they did talk very badly about counseling and warned the members constantly about how bad it was. I think this was, in essence, a similar strategy to warning about deprogrammers. It basically kept you from wanting to get any kind of counseling when if you left. I don't think I had any one deprogrammer. I think my life experiences, my husband, and the counseling I did receive have helped me to deprogram myself. It is still an ongoing process. When you leave a place like that, you don't realize how much you need to be reprogrammed until you start living life. As you go along, you start to realize it, and I've found that it's best to address each thing as it comes up. That being said, it's a very long, hard road, as my husband can attest to. It's been 4 years and I still have a lot to work on. You mentioned your dad. Is he no longer part of the cult? How did that happen? Was he supportive when you left? My dad left the group 23 years ago. He is an accountant and was the treasurer for a while at the church. He started noticing some of the shady stuff going on with the money and tried to rectify it. As a result, he was removed and the cult leader told the congregation that he had been stealing money from the church members. He stayed for a little after that, but financial pressures kept building. The church was demanding more money but refusing to let him work enough to get the money, and he finally told my mother that he wanted to take his family out of the system. When that happened, she refused to leave, sicked the cult dogs on him, and filed for legal separation. It was a very messy battle for about 5 years, with the major casualties being us kids. He was very supportive of me when I left and helped me get on my feet as quickly as possible. He supported me in going to grad school and has been there for me every step of the way in this amazing journey. I'm sorry for asking this, but did the cult do anything to your close family after you left? Is it still your family or they too have disowned you? For a while they did disown me, but I kept pursuing a relationship with them, and I am happy to say that I do have somewhat of a relationship with all of them. Things could definitely be better, but there is still time for improvement. To my knowledge, the cult leaders did not punish my family members when I left. However, the way it works is that your family members are usually the ones dealing you the harshest blows, and the cult leaders are urging them to do so. It's yet another way that they try to manipulate and hurt you. For example, the cult leader had one of my sisters be the supervised guard who watched as I picked up the rest of my stuff. When I asked her for help in loading everything, she refused and just sat in her chair, watching me struggle to get everything loaded. What is your favorite part of being out of the cult? My favorite part? That's a hard one. There are so many things I love. I love that I can make a daily schedule and do it without having to check with someone as to whether or not it's acceptable. I love that I can talk freely with people about anything and be restrained only by the dictates of my own conscience as opposed to the dictates of a mad woman. Oh, and I love the music. The thing I miss most is my family and feeling the closeness of having people you love surround you. I also miss having enough history with someone to share inside jokes and knowing smiles. Welcome to Reddit. Thank you for choosing to be free. Now believe everything we believe or we will downvote you. Haha, that's okay. Downvote away. What was it that drew your parents to the cult? Did they restrict or filter information, i.e., control movies watched, music? How was the general interaction like within the cult? Thanks. My parents were drawn to the cult separately. My dad when he was just out of high school and my mom when she was halfway through college. I think the initial draw was having a genuine experience with God. At the time my parents joined, there was another man and wife leading the church and they were not at all cult leaders, from what I hear. It was after they left and this woman took over that the church started becoming a cult. This woman is very manipulative and can read people really well. She used her abilities to control people and things just got worse and worse. Growing up, they restricted everything. I remember when I was a kid that a couple of the boys in the group rigged a desk with a secret compartment for a radio in it. We would turn the radio on and listen to music when there were no adults around. We weren't allowed to listen to anything non-Christian. We weren't allowed to watch rated R movies unless the leader gave permission. I've heard that some of these restrictions have loosened a lot in an attempt to keep the next generation from leaving. What do you mean by general interactions? Have you seen Martha Marcy May Marlene? I have. I thought it was a really great movie and that we need more like it to make people more aware of this topic. Interestingly, though, I was really shaken by her turmoil in the movie. What was shown was so benign compared to what people really go through. My husband, who saw it with me, left the theater completely drained. For me, it was just another day in the life of a cultie. I'm going to be called an butthole for asking this, but whatever. Why reject their teachings but keep believing in God? What makes you think they lied about one thing but not the other? I won't call you an butthole. It seems like your question's an honest question, and I don't mind it. When you find out that someone is lying to you about something, what do? I like to go back to the beginning of what they told me and look at everything for myself, and that's what I have done and continue to do with the Bible and my belief in God. I've found that what these cult leaders, and many religious leaders the world over, do is add or take away things from the scripture and teach their ideas about God as fact. These cult leaders twisted scripture to make it say things it never said and taught as fact ideas about God that are not found in scripture. So, I rejected everything that was not found or based in scripture, and I have based my belief in God only on what I have found to be true. I hope that answers your questions. Do you consider mainstream religions cults, or at least cult-like? Does your past exposure make you more sensitive to instances of blind faith groupthink? I think there are several mainstream religions that operate in cult-like ways. The Mormon Church and Jehovah's Witnesses are two mainstream groups that use many cult strategies to control their members. I also believe there are many large Christian churches whose leaders use methods similar to those employed in cults to control their followers, and honestly, it makes me ill. I would say my past definitely makes me more sensitive to blind faith groupthink situations. I never like it when someone tells me I should believe something because they told me to or because a lot of other people believe it. Any idea, program, or method of doing something should be accepted or rejected based on its merits and not on its ability to collect followers. Did breaking free from the church and seeing it for what it is cause you to question your faith at any point? Was it challenging to continue to accept the Bible and your religion? Absolutely. I questioned everything when I left. It was very challenging to continue to accept the Bible, and, honestly, for a long time the only thing I trusted was what I experienced for myself. I think questioning things is healthy, and I still question things today. I believe what I do because I have had my own personal experiences with God that I believe are real and true. I constantly read things and talk with people. I am always seeking. I don't know that I will ever know the perfect truth until I die. Are you now closer with your father since you left the church? I don't necessarily think we are closer, as we were always very close, but our relationship is now allowed to be what it always wanted to be. We definitely share more and are much more a part of each other's lives. Where does this cult operate? Is it in the USA? It operates in the western United States. You have been visited by the money bird. It'll bring you good fortune, but only if you subscribe in 42 seconds or less. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.